Welcome to Maths with EJD. In this video, we're talking about game theory. And from this video up to the fourth video after this, our focus will be on that. So let's see an overview of what behavioral game theory is. Okay, behavioral game theory integrates psychological insights, psychological insights into traditional game theory to better predict human behavior in strategic settings. Of course, this is because, um, as far as humans are concerned, things don't can't always be mechanical, where you can be sure that one action leads to the other. Unlike classical game theory, which assumes rational decision making, behavioral game theory recognizes cognitive biases, cognitive biases, and social preferences. So basically, behavioral game theory can be seen as how human behavior impacts games. Okay. So key concepts in this situation. So we look at things like self-interest versus altruism. Okay, it's really important here. So we see that may not always, players may not always act to maximize their payoffs. Players may not always act to maximize their own payoffs, but might consider others' payoff. So I mean, this is not a normal thing to do, right? Because most of the times, you want to get the best for yourself. But in some situations, people may have incentives to look out for others instead of for themselves. So that's the idea of altruism as opposed to what we self-interest, which is normally expected to be. So we can talk about social preferences too. Social preferences is another idea in behavioral game theory. So people often care about fairness, not always. They often care about fairness, reciprocity. So like if you treat me well, I have the tendency of treating you well too. And of course, equity. So people want to share things equally sometimes instead of having everything to themselves. And there's also the idea of bounded rationality. Bounded uh bounded rationality. So for bounded rationality, right? Players have limited cognitive resources, limited cognitive resources, and do not always do not always make optimal decisions. Okay, so maybe because of stress or some kind of limitations, people may not make the best decision all the time. So, of course, a very good example can be seen in the idea of the prisoner's dilemma that we've been considering all along. So, let's look at an example of how behavior influences a game like that. So, imagine that in a prisoner's dilemma, I mean, I have made a whole video, a couple of videos referring to this. In fact, one of the videos is actually dedicated to the prisoner's dilemma. So in the prisoner's dilemma game, okay, um, imagine the traditional game theory. The traditional game theory suggests, the traditional game theory suggests that both players, both players will defect to maximize their individual incomes. That is what it should normally be, right? You want to save your own head, so you want to mutually betray yourselves, Then, on the other hand, when we talk about behavioral game theory, so for behavioral game theory, right? Behavioral game theory might predict cooperation, okay? This might predict cooperation if the players value trust or fairness over maximizing their payoff. Okay. So in some situations, people think less of themselves, um, or they think of themselves less, if that's a better way to put it. All right. So if two players, A and B, have a choice to cooperate or defect, okay. So we know that the payoff matrix will be something like this. Payoff matrix is something like this. Um, you know, if both cooperate, each of them gets 3 points. But if A defects and B cooperates, okay, so the person who defects seems to will get 5 points, and the other person who cooperates gets zero for being foolish, technically, right? So if A now cooperates, if A cooperates and B defects, so the defector is considered wise, and the defector gets 5 points, and the cooperator gets zero. Lastly, if both defect, they get the least of points. So if both defect, right, they get 1 point each. Okay. So what happens? You see that if we introduce behavior into this, despite of course, the general outcome is supposed to have been 1-1, right? But despite the dominant strategy, despite the dominant strategy being to defect, right? Because each person will hope that, oh, I defect, the other person cooperates, and I get five points. Despite the dominant strategy being to defect, if the players value trust or fairness, all right, they may cooperate. Of course, it's conditional, depending on the people involved. They may cooperate, showing a departure, showing a departure from the purely rational outcome. Hey, so that's the idea of this, just an introduction to behavioral game theory. So we are still going to see other aspects. For instance, in the next video, we're talking about bounded rationality, fairness, and reciprocity. Reciprocity, reciprocity rather. All right. So because you definitely don't want to miss out on that. It's better you subscribe right now if you have not done that already and hit the notification bell so that you can get alerted each time a new video is released. Also, comment, let me know how helpful these videos have been to you. And of course, let me also know if you want me to teach a topic or solve a problem. And very importantly, like and share so that more people can have access to this great content coming out of this channel all the time. Till I come your way again, keep playing the game of life with wisdom, fear, and fairness. Bye.